Thank you. I want to congratulate you for this event and for having so many people out today. Women in politics, I echo everything that Margaret said. Most of the women that I know in politics weren't born with a silver spoon, didn't have it handed to them. They all worked from the ground up. I mean, I grew up in Northern Ontario, a mining community, and from a very young age, and I can relate to women not getting involved in math and science, and I was interested in math and science, and frequently was the only female in a room full of young men, and for women that's particularly difficult. These are people that you hope are going to ask you out on a date, and it doesn't work well when you excel in math and science, because that's supposed to be the male bastion. And I used to sit on the board of Trafalgar Castle School for Girls, and a lot of the women that put their daughters in there is because they want them, give them the opportunity to excel in math and science without having to compete with the young male that I say they're hoping to impress. So we have to make strides, we have to do that, but it's something that's sort of ongoing. But I also want to tell you that women serve in politics in many, many roles. Some of us are fortunate enough to be elected officials and to stand in front of either our council or a legislature or the House of Commons and be able to advocate for not only women but for our constituents. But a good number of others are serving in other capacities. They're executive assistants to those federal members or those provincial members. They are often the ones that write the speeches that our male colleagues deliver. They are there assisting in every way, shape, and form. So when I talk to people about getting involved in politics, I want you to get involved at any level that you feel comfortable in. And initially when I started, the last thing in my mind was that I was going to run for a federal office. I started off as a bit of an agitator in high school. Didn't like, I know that surprises me. I didn't really like the way things were going and thought, well, there's only one way to change this, run for office. And I decided to run for student council president. Everyone said, Judi, it was a mixed school, it was a huge technical end, they're never going to elect a woman. Well, about a third of the way through the campaign, I went home and said to my mother, oh my God, what am I going to do? I think I'm going to win. Now, it's not going to be all talk, you're going to have to do that. The same kind of thing, again, growing up in a northern community, a male-dominated community, my biggest supporters were actually my father and my brother, who treated me like one of the boys, I don't know, but who always said, look, there is nothing that you can't do if you put your mind to it. And when I was looking for a job and looking around, there wasn't anything, my father said they're hiring at the mine. I said, but they don't hire women at the mine. He says, well, how do you know if you don't apply? So I applied, and again, to my horror, was hired and found out that I was working underground with a number of men. Being able to do, now I wasn't, I didn't have the drill and all that, I was actually cleaning small equipment in an underground room. And I can't tell you that I was well accepted because a lot of immigrant men who felt that having women in the mine was it was dangerous. There was a superstition, and for the first 6 months that I was there, because I took a year off school to work in the mine, I couldn't go down in the cage with them. The men would all go and they'd stand in front of the elevator, the cage, and I would have to wait, and I would go down after them. So the hoistman would have to make 2 trips, one for all the men and one for me. There was one gentleman that I remember very well who was particularly upset about having this woman in the mine. He used to put bats in my pocket. And so I put my hand in my pocket and there would be the bat, and of course I'd scream and say, don't do that, but anyway I would. But the reason I'm telling you this is that, I can't remember all of the things, but we had a mine evacuation. And we all went to the rescue station, and at that particular morning, I had put my hand in my pocket, there was a bat, it had bitten me. So I knew that this Mr. Levite was there in the mine. But as we got gathered out, he wasn't there. And I said, well, we can't go. Jean-Pierre is not here. No, he didn't check in this morning. I said, I know he came. I know he came because, and then I had to confess that he was putting bats in my pocket. Anyway, the long and the short of it is they did go out and find him. They found him lying in the drift. He'd fallen and he was unconscious. So So they dragged him in and they put him up. 2 days later, when I reported back to work, I stood back like a dutiful, woman that was there, and everybody was getting in. And from the back, I heard someone say, "You think we can wait around all day for you? Get in!" It was Mr. LeVay, and that was his. And from then on, I went up and down with him. And he never said thank you. He never said, but that was his thank you. I guess what I'm saying is that you just have to persevere, and you just have to do it, because if you're doing your job and you're not complaining about it and you're not expecting special privileges, I find that people tend to warm up and to accept you for who you are and what you can do. And so I guess I'm saying to all the women who are here, don't give up. You're not successful the first time, sometimes not even the second time, but I think you need to persevere. I also want you to take the good advice that your male colleagues will give you, because they have a lot to offer. Embrace the women that you're working with, and remember, when as women, we are caregivers. We are those who need to sort of juggle our priorities. And I don't think we're seeing a lack of women because they're not interested, but because I think basically women are more risk averse, and women are perhaps not as thick-skinned as some of the men, and take some of those things a little more personally when they're hearing. I remember rapping at the door and a fellow saying to me, "Why would I vote for a woman? Just look at the crime around here. It's because women aren't taking care of their kids and they're out doing these other things." And I have a son who was pretty aggressive as well. And so he sort of bounded up to the door and banged on the door after I left, and he said, "Excuse me." He said, "I just heard you speaking to Mrs. Longfield." He said, "I want you to know it's my mother." He said, and all this nonsense about crime and all this, he says, "All my friends are out, my male friends are out working, helping her. We're very proud of what she's doing, and she can juggle more than one thing at a time, and I will have a meal, and she does know where I am, and all that," and he kind of slammed the door. But, well, I'm never going to get that vote. When I got home, there was a phone call. And the fellow was, "Well, Mrs. Longfield, this is Mr. Sullivan." He said, "I'm the gentleman that you met at the door, and I'm the one who unfortunately was accosted by your son." I'm thinking, oh. He says, "But I want you to know," he says, "my wife and my 3 daughters were in the back room," he said, "and they heard everything." He says, "I want you to put a sign on the lawn." Some of the things that you will encounter as a woman in politics. But like I said, I didn't come with a speech. I came here to sort of say to you, go for it. There isn't anything that you can't do, no matter what it is. And if you don't feel that you're prepared to get involved at the provincial or the federal level, there's municipal politics, but there's also helping in community projects and doing it. And I think that I'm not only am I the executive director of the Federal Liberal Party, but I'm also the Ontario campaign director. And I can tell you that the leader, Stéphane Dion, felt very strongly about having a critical mass of women, and he gave us a target of 33%. And in Ontario, you would think, well, that would be easy. But unfortunately, we have a critical mass of male incumbents. And quite frankly, they're all doing a very good job, and I'm not prepared to ask any of them to step down. So now we have to meet a target of 33% with a number of seats that are already spoken for. It hasn't been a problem. I can tell you that there have been young women putting their names forward in almost every riding in the province where we had an open seat. They're just simply saying, A, I think it's good experience. B, I want to do this again in the future, and I know I may have to run one time or another. Thirdly, I have young daughters. I'm trying to encourage them to get involved and be active, and I'm making myself a role model. So they're running for any number of reasons. And I remember in 1993 begging people to run for federal seats because I was sort of candidate search, and I said, "Oh, I can run." And all of a sudden, things changed, and we were in a situation where we won every seat except one in Ontario, and a lot of those women that I had begged to run said, "Why didn't you tell me I was going to win?" Well, you don't always have a crystal ball.